Liberal Viewer presents.
So Fox News' bias on the healthcare reform issue has been extensive over the years, as I've documented in several videos, and Fox News has been particularly one-sided covering the issue of the Republican lawsuits against the healthcare reform law passed by Congress last year, especially in framing the question of whether the government can regulate how people pay for their healthcare, which you can see Fox News Sunday anchor Chris Wallace frame with Republican spin at a Republican presidential candidates debate last August like this.
Do you think the government at any level has the right to make someone buy a good or service just because they are a U.S. resident? Where do you find that authority, that mandating authority, government making an individual buy a good or service in the Constitution?
Now, the problem with framing the question like that is virtually everyone ends up being a consumer of healthcare, and laws require hospitals to provide healthcare services regardless of ability to pay, so what the government's really regulating is how you buy your healthcare and who ends up paying for it, with the Federal Sixth Circuit, in an opinion joined by judges appointed by both Republicans and Democrats, finding that those who choose not to buy health insurance, what the court calls the self-insured, quote, as a class are unable to pay for the healthcare services that they receive, unquote. The court went on to point out that the uninsured cost Americans $43 billion in 2008, which increased healthcare premiums for everyone else an average of $1,000 a year. These facts are important because the greater the effect the decision to delay paying for healthcare has on the economy, the stronger the argument that Congress has the power to regulate it under the clause of the U.S. Constitution giving Congress the power to regulate interstate commerce. That's why the Sixth Circuit Court held, quote, Congress had a rational basis to believe that the practice of self-insuring for the cost of healthcare in the aggregate substantially affects interstate commerce, unquote. But you rarely see that argument presented on Fox News, even from the supposedly left-wing anchors like Geraldo Rivera, who recently did a full segment on the constitutionality of healthcare reform that began with the biased introduction of his Republican guest that you can see here.
26 states and the National Federation of Independent Business are suing to have the law, specifically that requirement that everybody get health insurance, declared unconstitutional. Florida is one of them. And the Sunshine State is represented by our friend, Attorney General Pam Bondi. General, welcome to the program. Are you surprised?
Hey, good evening, Geraldo.
Are you surprised?
Good evening, Geraldo, and it's Pam.
Okay, Pam. Well, okay.
And now, after finishing his flirting, Geraldo somehow never got around to telling his viewers that Florida's Attorney General Pam Bondi is a Republican, just like the 25 other state attorneys general who filed the lawsuit against healthcare reform. And again, Fox News never mentioned the partisan nature of that lawsuit, though Geraldo himself was quick to presume that healthcare reform would be struck down by a partisan majority of the Supreme Court in this clip.
Wouldn't you be shocked? I know I would be shocked. Let me put it that way, Pam. I would be shocked if the court didn't follow its usual 5-4 right majority over left minority and declare the law unconstitutional. I think that it would be almost irresponsible not to handicap it that way unless you see something differently.
Well, and again, as I told you in the 11th Circuit, though, we had a judge appointed by President Clinton who ruled in our favor. So we firmly believe this is unconstitutional. And you know, Geraldo, 5-4 is a win for the people of America.
Now, I rarely make predictions in my videos, but I would be very surprised if there aren't at least 5 votes in the U.S. Supreme Court to uphold the constitutionality of this healthcare law, and there may well be 6, 7, or even 8 votes to uphold it. But even though Geraldo Rivera is a lawyer, he never gave his viewers that other side of the argument from that Sixth Circuit case that the billions of dollars the uninsured cost the rest of us means that regulating the way people choose to pay for their health care is well within the power granted to Congress to regulate interstate commerce. That argument is especially strong given the way the Supreme Court has decided Commerce Clause cases in the past, which Geraldo never told his viewers, instead letting his Republican guest, who again was never identified as a Republican, continue unchallenged with her partisan analysis here.
This is unprecedented. Congress hasn't done anything like this in over 200 years, and I feel very confident that we will prevail in the Supreme Court.
So it's going to be the 10th Amendment over the Commerce Clause.
That's right. That's right. That if the federal government can force us to purchase a product simply by being alive, no activity involved, simply by being born, then they can force us to do anything.
Again, Geraldo was basically just a straight man for his Republican guest there, but what really got lost in their partisan analysis was the truth about the way the so-called conservatives on the court have voted on Commerce Clause cases in the past, because these conservatives have argued for years that it's judicial activism for judges to strike down laws passed by the elected representatives of the people, especially in the area of the Commerce Clause. But though I've never heard that truth discussed on Fox News, I actually heard it earlier this month, finally, on HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher, of all places, on the Overtime segment only available on the internet, from former Governor of Michigan Jennifer Granholm, who reacted to Bill Maher saying conservative justices would vote to strike down health care reform in this clip.
You know Scalia is going to vote.
No, not necessarily.
Really?
I mean, on the issue that is being raised, which is, does Congress have the right to be able to pass laws that affect interstate commerce, which health insurance certainly does? Scalia has been a great deferrer to Congress. Right. And so, you know, I don't know that it's a slam dunk, but certainly in light of the composition, I know.
All right.
It's hope springs eternal.
I wish I could hear more analyses like that on news shows rather than comedy shows, and Bill Maher also had the good sense to realize his mistake in his comedic response right here.
If you read up about this stuff, you're going to make the rest of us look stupid.
Oh, sorry.
All right, if you want to bring facts and knowledge into
Sorry,
it, Governor.
Actual judicial precedent.
Now I'm an asshole. All right.
Now I can forgive comedian Bill Maher for failing to read up on Supreme Court rulings regarding the Commerce Clause, but the lawyers and journalists over at Fox News have more of a responsibility, and especially lawyer-journalist Geraldo Rivera, I think, but I want to know what you think. Doesn't Fox News and especially Geraldo Rivera owe viewers a story on the constitutionality of the health care reform law that actually prepares them for the likelihood the U.S. Supreme Court will find the law constitutional? And regarding my bold prediction about the constitutionality of health care reform, will at least 5 justices of the U.S. Supreme Court find the health care reform law to be constitutional?
YouTube, you decide.